She was just a waitress, carrying trays through the chaos of her crowded restaurant. He was a billionaire, trapped in a problem no one could solve. When their paths crossed, one simple act would change everything, and leave him speechless. Hello beautiful souls, and welcome to Ms. Love Stories channel, the place where love, drama, and unforgettable moments come alive. I'm so thrilled you're here, ready to dive into stories that will make your heart race, bring tears, and leave you believing in the power of love. Before we begin, I want to get to know all of you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because in the next video, I'll give a special shout out to some of you amazing viewers from around the world. I can't wait to see how far our love story family reaches. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, so you never miss a single emotional journey. Get ready to feel, laugh, cry, and fall in love all over again, because every story we share here is for you. Today's shout-out goes to Shoshana Moore from Dancer, Colorado, Harry Peters from Amsterdam, and Glenn Smith from Ohio. Now, the story begins. Rose. Michael sat alone in his high-rise office, the city lights stretching endlessly below. Every surface gleamed, every detail meticulously in place. Yet nothing could calm the tension coiling in his chest. A contract lay open on his desk, the most important of his career, yet riddled with errors no one else could untangle. He clenched his fists, frustrated, not over the deal itself, but over the hollow feeling that no matter how much he achieved, something essential was missing from his life. He had power, wealth, and influence, but he had no one who truly understood him. Across town, Anna weaved through the bustling restaurant, balancing plates and dodging the clatter of chairs and conversations. The scent of sizzling butter and coffee hung thick in the air. Sweat dampened her hairline as she smiled at impatient customers, her mind racing with bills, rent, and the weight of caring for her younger brother. Though life had forced her into an apron, she carried an intelligence and quickness that few noticed. When a tray slipped in the kitchen, she caught it midair, saving the night from disaster. A quiet brilliance shone in her eyes, waiting for the moment it would matter most. Michael's world was precise, cold, and silent. Anna's was chaotic, alive, and unpredictable. Two lives that should never meet. Yet both carried the same hidden longing. He for someone who could see beyond his walls. She for someone who could recognize her worth. Unseen by either, the threads of fate were already weaving them together, preparing for a moment that would not just solve a problem, but ignite something neither expected. She adjusted her apron, glanced at the door, and felt a strange sense of anticipation. Across the city, Michael rubbed his temples, unaware that help, and perhaps something more, was about to arrive in a form he would never anticipate. The next morning, Michael found himself in a boardroom he had rented at a quiet boutique hotel. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee, and the sunlight streamed through the tall windows, cutting across the sleek table where piles of contracts and reports were stacked. His mind raced as he tried, once again, to untangle the mess in the documents. Each clause seemed to twist in impossible ways, a knot no amount of expertise could unravel. He rubbed his temples, frustration tightening like a vice. He had called everyone, his top assistants, legal advisors, even outside consultants, but nothing worked. Every solution they offered fell short. And as the hours stretched on, the weight of failure pressed down on him. He was used to control, to being the one who solved every problem. But today, that control felt like a lie. Then the door opened quietly, and a small figure stepped in. Anna. She had been sent by a last-minute suggestion from one of the hotel staff, who had seen her keen mind in action while managing chaos at the restaurant. Michael barely looked up, his expression skeptical, almost dismissive. "I don't see how anyone can help here," he said, voice flat, practice calm hiding irritation. Anna didn't flinch. She placed a folder gently on the table and looked at him squarely. "I think I can," she said simply. There was no hesitation in her voice, no attempt to flatter or impress. It was matter-of-fact, confident, precise. Michael frowned, curiosity warring with disbelief. For the next few minutes, she studied the contract, flipping pages, muttering softly to herself. She pointed out inconsistencies, clauses that contradicted each other, and overlooked conditions that had escaped even the sharpest lawyers. Michael watched, incredulous, as she traced connections he hadn't noticed, proposing elegant solutions that simplified what he had thought was unsolvable. Time seemed to slow. He realized that this wasn't just talent. This was instinct, insight, intelligence paired with calm courage. He had dealt with geniuses before, but none had this clarity, this quiet authority. And yet there was something else in the way she moved, spoke, and thought, something that made him uneasy. It wasn't just that she solved the problem, it was that she did it with ease, almost as if she had anticipated the chaos before it had existed. When she finished, Michael sat back, stunned. The contract was flawless now. Every knot undone. The impossible had been made simple. He opened his mouth to speak, to say something, but no words came. For the first time in years he felt a flush of genuine amazement, and something else he hadn't expected, gratitude. Anna glanced at him, a faint smile playing on her lips, but her eyes held no arrogance, no expectation. She was aware of her brilliance, but it wasn't performance. It was who she was. Michael's chest tightened. He had expected relief, but what he felt was something heavier, more complicated, a sudden awareness that life could still surprise him. For a long moment, they sat in silence. The only sound was the soft rustle of papers and the faint hum of the city outside. Then, almost instinctively, Michael spoke, his voice low, almost hesitant. How did you do that?" Anna shrugged lightly, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "I just saw the problem differently," she said. "Sometimes it's not about fighting the chaos, it's about understanding it." Michael nodded, but he couldn't shake the effect she had on him. The room felt smaller somehow, charged with an energy that neither of them could name. This small, unassuming woman had walked in and changed everything. His contract, his day, and he suspected his perspective. And for Anna, the moment carried weight too. She had solved the problem, yes, but she could sense the man behind the title. The loneliness in his eyes, the tension he carried. She saw it because she had felt it too, in her own life. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to be seen, truly seen, by someone like him. The door clicked open again, breaking the spell. His assistant peeked in, clearing her throat nervously. Michael's mind snapped back to reality, but only partially. He realized something had shifted in the room, in the air between them, in the world itself. And though neither of them could name it yet, the collision of their lives had begun. As Anna gathered her things to leave, Michael found himself speaking again. "Wait before you go. What's your name?" "Anna," she replied, her tone light, almost teasing. "And you?" "Michael," he said. Something in the way her eyes met his held his attention longer than it should have. "Michael Reynolds." She nodded once, with that quiet confidence that had undone him in minutes, then turned and left. Michael watched her go, a strange mix of admiration and confusion swirling in his chest. He had solved the contract, but he wondered, for the first time in a long time, if he had just begun to unravel something far more personal. Could one person really change everything in just a few minutes? Comment below what you would do if you were Michael in that moment. The city buzzed outside, oblivious, but inside the small boardroom, something fragile and extraordinary had begun. A spark that neither could yet name, but both would feel the consequences of for a long time to come. The days following the boardroom encounter were strange for Michael. He couldn't stop thinking about Anna. The way she had walked in so casually, solved a problem he thought was impossible, and left without even a hint of expectation. It should have been simple. She was a waitress, someone far removed from his world. And yet, in every quiet moment, her image haunted him. The faint curve of her smile, the clarity in her eyes, the unassuming confidence she carried like armor. At the office, he went through his routine mechanically, checking emails, signing documents, conducting meetings, but every decision felt hollow. Even the people who relied on him noticed the shift. Michael had always been decisive, commanding. Now, a subtle distraction lingered, like a shadow tugging at the edges of his thoughts. He tried to dismiss it, telling himself it was irrational. A waitress solving a problem didn't mean anything. It was work, nothing more. Meanwhile, Anna returned to her life at the restaurant, carrying the invisible weight of what had happened. Customers, orders, clattering dishes. These were the rhythms she knew and controlled. But in the quiet moments between tables, she remembered Michael's furrowed brow. the tension in his shoulders that eased only when the solution was laid bare. She told herself it wasn't her concern. She was a waitress. He was a billionaire. Their worlds shouldn't touch again. Yet, denial proved difficult. When the hotel called her back for another project, she found herself hesitating, caught between practicality and curiosity. Something about him had unsettled her. She had seen countless people in positions of power, arrogant, impatient, dismissive. But Michael was different. Vulnerability peeked through his armor, though he did everything to hide it. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she didn't want to ignore it. Their next encounter was awkward. Michael greeted her with a polite nod, but the air between them was charged. He tried to maintain distance, reminding himself that this was business, nothing more. "I appreciate your help," he said formally, avoiding eye contact. "The contract is perfect now. That's all I needed." Anna's eyes flicked to him, studying his reaction, searching for a hint of emotion he wasn't giving. "I just do my job," she replied, her voice measured but firm. There was a tension there, the unspoken energy of something neither could articulate yet, and it made Michael uneasy. He wanted to speak, to break through the walls he had built, but fear and pride clamped his tongue. Pride, the same pride that had carried him through every business battle, now held him back from something profoundly human. In the following days, Michael found himself avoiding her calls and emails, instructing his team to handle any interactions. He convinced himself it was for the best. Too many bridges between their worlds would be dangerous, potentially complicated. And yet, when he thought of her, he felt a gnawing emptiness. A whisper that something important was slipping through his fingers. Anna too struggled. She busied herself with the restaurant, her brother's needs, and late-night study sessions to improve her career prospects. But every time she paused, Michael's face, his voice, the faint flicker of vulnerability she had glimpsed haunted her. She tried to dismiss it as a fleeting distraction, an anomaly. Still she couldn't. There was something magnetic about him, something honest buried beneath his control and his wealth, that drew her in despite every logical reason to stay away. The tension escalated when their paths crossed in a neutral setting. A networking event where Anna had been hired to assist with organization. Michael saw her across the room, effortlessly managing chaos, and he felt a sudden jolt. Admiration, frustration, longing, all at once. She noticed him too, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked. But neither spoke. Each felt the pull of what might be, yet both resisted it, unwilling to surrender to the vulnerability it demanded. Michael left the room abruptly, telling himself he was protecting his world, his image, his heart. Anna watched him go, heart heavy, but proud of herself for keeping her composure. Neither realized how much effort it was costing them to hold back. Days later, Michael called one of his assistants, exasperated. "Why can't I stop thinking about her?" he asked, almost to himself. The answer was simple yet terrifying. Anna had touched something in him he thought he had buried long ago. The need to be seen, to be understood, to connect. Anna, sitting in the restaurant late that night, stared at a blank notepad. She wanted to write down ideas for her future, for opportunities that might lift her out of this life. Instead, her mind wandered to Michael. She wondered if he was thinking about her too, if the connection had mattered to him, or if she had simply been another fleeting problem solver in his world. The uncertainty burned. And so, resistance continued. Both of them were caught between worlds, between desire and fear. Pride, social divide, and the unspoken tension created a wall neither wanted to breach. Yet the spark had been lit, and no amount of avoidance could extinguish it entirely. Have you ever felt a connection you couldn't explain but fought it anyway? Comment below. What would you do in their shoes? The days stretched into weeks. Michael and Anna each fought the pull toward one another, denying the unspoken bond forming between them. But life, as it often does, had other plans, and soon circumstances would force them closer than either expected, breaking the fragile walls of resistance they had built. It was late afternoon when fate intervened. A sudden storm had swept over the city, dark clouds rolling in like an omen, rain pelting the streets in relentless sheets. Michael, heading home from a meeting, found himself trapped in his sleek black car as the roads quickly flooded. Traffic was at a standstill. The city that normally obeyed his command now felt alien and uncontrollable. At the same time, Anna was leaving the restaurant, umbrella in hand, struggling against the wind that threatened to topple it. She had promised her younger brother she'd be home early to help him with homework, but the storm had other plans. She hurried, slipping through puddles, the rain soaking through her coat. She cursed under her breath, wishing she could move faster, wishing she weren't so small in a world that seemed intent on slowing her down. Their collision with destiny happened at a taxi stand, where both had sought refuge from the torrential downpour. Michael, drenched, impatient, and tense, had been scanning the street for a car, when a familiar voice called out, "Michael." He turned sharply, and there she was, Anna, her hair plastered to her face, coat clinging to her frame, a small smirk fighting the frustration in her eyes. He opened his mouth, unsure whether to speak, to run, to ignore the impossible coincidence. But she approached with the same calm confidence that had stunned him in the boardroom weeks ago. The storm left them with no choice. The taxi stand had one small waiting area, barely big enough for two, and the torrential rain made venturing out impossible. They were trapped together, side by side, as the wind howled and rain hammered against the glass. Michael shifted uncomfortably, and used to sharing small, intimate spaces with anyone, not even colleagues, let alone strangers who had disrupted his carefully ordered life. Anna, for her part, tried to make light of the situation, laughing softly at the absurdity of it. "I guess the universe really doesn't want us to ignore each other," she said, shaking water from her coat. Michael gave a tight-lipped smile, caught off guard by her humor. She seemed so grounded, so real, in a world that felt increasingly chaotic to him. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, it was impossible to tell. Conversation started cautiously, then grew more personal. Michael found himself sharing small details he had never revealed to anyone. His impatience with incompetence, the constant pressure to maintain his empire, the quiet loneliness that no success could mask. Anna listened, not interrupting, offering empathy without judgment. Anna shared her own stories too. Her struggles at the restaurant, the burden of caring for her brother, the constant fight to be seen and valued in a world that often overlooked her. She didn't exaggerate, didn't dramatize. She simply told the truth, and in that honesty, Michael felt something stirring inside him. A connection he hadn't expected. A sense of understanding that bypassed wealth, status, and fear. They laughed together when the taxi finally arrived. A small, shared relief, but neither moved to leave immediately. There was a fragile intimacy in the enforced proximity. The way her hand brushed against his as she reached for the door. The way his voice softened when he asked about her brother. Small gestures, almost imperceptible, but charged with meaning. As the ride progressed, they discovered they thought alike in ways neither anticipated. Both had a sense of problem-solving born of necessity, a resilience tempered by struggle, and a subtle humor that eased tension. They weren't just stuck in a taxi. They were caught in a moment that revealed the depth of what had only been hinted at before. When Michael finally pulled up to his building, neither was eager to part. The storm had forced them into closeness, yes, but it had also broken down invisible walls. He looked at her and said almost reluctantly, "I don't usually let people in, but I'm glad you were here today." Anna smiled softly, something unspoken passing between them. A fragile acknowledgement of the spark that had started in the boardroom and refused to be extinguished. "I think sometimes the universe has a strange way of making people meet," she said. They parted that evening, but the memory lingered. The storm had done more than soak their clothes. It had pushed them into vulnerability, forced them to confront emotions they had both tried to deny. Both returned to their worlds changed, their hearts a little more open, a little more aware of the possibility that life could surprise them in ways neither could control. Have you ever been forced into a situation with someone that changed everything? Comment below what you would have done in Anna or Michael's place. The storm faded, leaving the city glistening and quiet, but the impact remained. Forced proximity had done what words could not. Brought their worlds into alignment, and opened the door to an emotional journey neither could yet fully understand. The days after the storm felt heavier for both of them, charged with memories and the unspoken weight of proximity. Michael returned to his office, attempting to dive into work, but the image of Anna lingered. Her quiet strength, the way her eyes had met his, the small gestures that had unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Pride urged him to bury the thoughts, to ignore the pull she had on him. But curiosity and something deeper refused to be silenced. Meanwhile, Anna found herself staring at the contracts she had worked on for Michael, thinking of him not as the billionaire everyone feared, but as a man trapped in expectations, lonely in a world that demanded perfection. She remembered the expression in his eyes that day in the taxi, the exhaustion, the vulnerability, and it tugged at her in a way she hadn't expected. The next encounter was not by chance, but necessity. Michael had requested her help on another complex negotiation. This time he insisted on meeting at his private residence, a sprawling penthouse that overlooked the glittering city. Anna hesitated at the thought of stepping into his world, feeling the invisible line that separated them more sharply than ever. She was a waitress, he was a billionaire. Yet the pull was irresistible. As she arrived, Michael greeted her not with formalities, but with a quiet nod, the tension between them palpable yet softened by familiarity. He offered her a cup of tea, something he rarely did for anyone. They sat across from each other at a long, polished table, the hum of the city below acting as a distant soundtrack. Michael broke the silence first, almost reluctantly. "You know, I wasn't always like this," he said, his voice low, carrying a weight she hadn't expected. "I didn't start with money, with power. I lost people along the way. Family. Friends. I built walls because I thought it was safer than letting anyone in. But sometimes, those walls trap more than they protect." Anna listened, her own past surfacing alongside his words. She hadn't shared her deepest struggles with anyone. Her childhood, the responsibility of raising her brother after their parents passed, the constant fight to survive in a world that rarely noticed her. But something about Michael's honesty made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. Tentatively, she began to speak. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," she admitted. "To work hard, to do everything right, and still have people overlook who you really are. I've had to be strong for my brother, for myself, for everyone, and sometimes I get tired. But I keep going. I don't have a choice." Her voice wavered for a moment, and she looked down, ashamed of the vulnerability she had allowed to surface. Michael reached out, lightly, hesitating only a second before letting his hand hover near hers. "You're not invisible," he said softly. "I see you. I see everything you do, and I can't stop thinking about it. About you." The confession hung in the air, a fragile bridge between two wounded hearts. They both knew the risks, the social divide, the pride, yet in that moment none of it mattered. What mattered was the truth, their shared understanding of loss, responsibility, and longing. Hours passed as they spoke, delving deeper into their histories. Michael revealed how he had pushed away anyone who cared for him, afraid of being weak, afraid of losing more. Anna admitted the loneliness of a life that demanded responsibility far beyond her years, the sacrifices she made silently, the dreams deferred for survival. For the first time Michael laughed, softly, genuinely, at a story Anna told about her brother's antics, and she laughed with him, the sound light and freeing. The walls they had built around themselves began to crumble, each story, each revelation, creating a thread connecting them more tightly than either expected. But the backstory also revealed fears. Michael's fear of vulnerability, Anna's fear of rejection. They realized that even with honesty, the world could still push them apart. Their connection, though real and magnetic, was fragile. Yet for the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine a possibility. That someone could understand them, truly see them, and care. Not for wealth, not for circumstance, but for who they were inside. By the end of the evening, the bond between them had deepened. They were no longer two strangers from different worlds. They were two people who had laid bare their pasts and found resonance in each other's pain and resilience. The air between them was heavy with unspoken promises, and yet, both knew that the real test of their connection was yet to come. Do you think past wounds can bring two people closer, or do they push them apart? Comment below what you think Michael and Anna should do next. As Anna left the penthouse, the city lights glimmered around her like a fragile promise. And Michael, standing by the window long after she had gone, knew one thing for certain. He could no longer ignore the truth. She had touched him in ways no one else ever had. And that spark could not be denied. The weekend arrived, bringing with it a rare lull in both of their lives. Michael had closed a major deal, one that had consumed him for months, and Anna's restaurant was unusually quiet after a hectic Friday night. Neither of them had planned to see the other. Yet, as often happens when paths are intertwined, fate intervened again. Michael found himself at a small art gallery, a quiet corner of the city he occasionally visited when the noise of his empire became too loud. He had gone alone, seeking solitude, seeking something unspoken, a reprieve from the relentless expectations of the world. He didn't expect to see her there, standing in front of a canvas, her expression thoughtful, as if she were searching for meaning in the brushstrokes. Anna turned, almost startled, and their eyes met. There was no need for introductions this time. They were no longer strangers. The past weeks had bridged a connection too deep to ignore. "I didn't expect to see you here," Michael said softly, almost unsure if his voice would carry the weight of what he felt. Anna smiled, the kind of small, shy smile that carried confidence without arrogance. "I could say the same," she replied. "It's peaceful here, different from my usual chaos." They walked together through the gallery, moving from painting to painting, exchanging thoughts about colors, emotion, and the stories behind the art. Michael was struck by how easily she expressed herself, how effortlessly she made the intangible tangible. She laughed at the absurdity of one abstract piece, and he found himself laughing too, the sound foreign and freeing in his own ears. Hours passed without either noticing. They shared coffee at a small cafe attached to the gallery, sitting close enough to feel the warmth of each other's presence, yet careful to respect the fragile boundaries they had both built. Michael opened up more than he had ever allowed himself in years, telling her about the pressures of maintaining an empire, the loneliness behind the polished image, and the rare moments when he wondered if all of it mattered. Anna listened, truly listened, and in her presence, he felt a strange sense of peace. She didn't judge, didn't offer solutions unless asked. She simply understood, and that simple act, being truly seen, was more intimate than anything he had experienced in years. In turn, Anna shared stories from her past, childhood memories, the weight of caring for her brother, her dreams deferred yet still alive beneath the surface. Michael reached across the table once, lightly brushing her hand as he offered encouragement, a gesture small but full of meaning. She didn't pull away. Instead, she allowed the connection, fragile and delicate, to exist. Later, as they walked through the quiet streets, rain having softened the city's edges, they paused under a street lamp. Michael looked at her, the distance between them charged with emotion. "I don't know why, but I feel like I can tell you things I've never told anyone," he said, voice low, almost vulnerable. Anna's hand found his, fingers brushing against his palm. "I feel the same," she admitted. "I don't know why either, but it feels right." For the first time, Michael allowed himself to hope. Hope that connection wasn't impossible, that love could exist beyond the walls he had built. For Anna, it was a moment of validation, a rare acknowledgement that her heart and mind mattered to someone who had the power to overlook everything else. They found themselves sharing more than words. Laughter, silence, small acts of kindness. Michael buying her a small painting she admired, Anna teaching him to appreciate the little details of everyday life. These moments wove a delicate tapestry of trust and intimacy. The city around them faded. It was just the two of them, two wounded hearts cautiously exploring the possibility of something deeper. Yet even in this fragile connection, there was tension. Both were aware of the risks. The social divide, pride, fear of vulnerability, and the shadows of past disappointments. But for now, they allowed themselves to believe in the possibility of happiness, if only for a fleeting moment. When they parted that evening, it was with a soft, lingering hug, neither speaking of the storm of emotions that lingered in their hearts. The air between them was heavy, but warm, filled with promises unspoken. For Michael, it was the first time in years he had felt alive in the presence of someone who truly understood him. For Anna, it was the first time in a long time she allowed herself to believe that someone might care for her beyond circumstance. Have you ever shared a moment with someone that changed everything, even if just for a moment? Comment below and share your thoughts. As she walked away, the city lights reflected in puddles at her feet, and Michael stood in quiet reflection. The bond forming between them was fragile, Yes, but it was real. And both of them knew, even without words, that life was about to test that bond in ways neither could yet imagine. For weeks, Michael and Anna had navigated the delicate rhythm of their connection. Every moment together carried excitement, vulnerability, and a growing sense of trust. But the world outside their fragile bubble was waiting, judgment, expectations, and miscommunication ready to strike. It started subtly. Rumors circulated in Michael's business circle, whispers of his attachment to someone beneath his station. Some colleagues were subtle, others not so much, questioning his judgment, questioning whether he could remain the infallible, untouchable figure they had always relied upon. Michael brushed them off at first, but doubt, once seated, is difficult to remove. At the same time, Anna faced her own pressures. Her brother's school problems, financial strains, and the endless demands of her job left her exhausted and irritable. She was already sensitive to scrutiny, and the insinuations from others, that she was stepping too far into Michael's world, that she might be playing a game, stung sharply. She began to second-guess herself, wondering if she was in over her head. Then came the incident. Michael's ex-associate, jealous and resentful of his growing attachment to Anna, spread a rumor that Anna had somehow manipulated Michael, that she was only there to gain access to his wealth. The words reached Michael not directly, but through the filtered lens of his ego and insecurities. For the first time, doubt crept in. He remembered Anna's past, the humility she carried, the way she had always maintained boundaries, but the seed of suspicion took root. Michael confronted Anna in his office, the tension so thick it seemed to choke the air. "I don't understand," he said, voice sharp, eyes stormy. "People are saying things. About you. About us. I need to know, is any of it true?" Anna froze, hurt and confused. She had never expected this from him. Not him, who had shared so much, who had let her into his world. "Michael, you know me. You've seen who I am. You know the truth," she said, voice trembling. Why would you even ask that? But Michael's pride, fear, and the pressure of judgment collided with his trust. "I have to know," he said, almost pleading. "Because I can't afford mistakes. I can't afford to be wrong about you." The words cut deeper than any accusation from the outside. Anna felt the sting of disbelief and betrayal. She had opened herself, shared her past, her fears, her vulnerabilities. And now, the man she had begun to trust, the man she thought understood her, questioned her integrity. "I can't do this," she said finally, stepping back. "I can't be someone you suspect, even after everything. If you can't trust me, then maybe we should stop." Her voice broke, the emotion she had contained spilling over. Michael tried to reach out, to explain, but words failed him. He wanted to defend her, defend himself, defend what they had, but every argument he attempted only seemed to push her further away. The distance between them grew suddenly, painfully, a chasm filled with doubt, fear, and unspoken hurt. In the following days, they avoided each other. Michael buried himself in work, attending meeting after meeting, closing deal after deal, but the emptiness inside him only grew. He realized the truth he had been trying to deny. He had allowed fear and pride to cloud his judgment, and in doing so, he had driven away the one person who mattered more than any business victory. Anna, too, felt the weight of their separation. She poured herself into her work, her brother, and her routines. Yet each quiet moment reminded her of what she had lost. She remembered his laughter, the warmth of his hand when they walked together, the softness in his eyes when he trusted her with his past. And she wondered if they would ever find their way back. Then came the confrontation she had dreaded. Michael's ex-associate had not finished their interference. They leaked a manipulated message to Anna, making it appear as though Michael had been speaking of her carelessly, dismissively. Anna saw the words, read them, and felt her heart shatter. The man she had begun to love, the man she had trusted, suddenly seemed like a stranger, or worse, a betrayal. She stormed out of the restaurant where she had been working late, tears mixing with the cold night air. Michael, receiving a panicked call from a colleague, raced to her apartment, heart pounding, realizing too late the depth of the misunderstanding. But when he arrived, she refused to answer, refusing to see him, refusing to listen. That night, Michael stood alone on his penthouse balcony, staring at the glittering city below, feeling a profound emptiness he hadn't experienced since childhood. The shatter point wasn't just the argument or the rumors. It was the realization that fear, pride, and doubt could undo the fragile bond he had worked so hard to build. Anna sat in her small apartment, curled under a blanket, replaying every word, every look, every small gesture they had shared. She knew the truth, yet anger and hurt clouded her vision. The connection they had nurtured now seemed fragile and distant, almost imaginary. For both of them, the pain was excruciating. They had touched something real, something transformative, and yet, it had been shattered, leaving behind only echoes of laughter, fleeting moments of joy, and the gnawing ache of what might have been. Have you ever lost someone because of a misunderstanding? Comment below. What would you do if you were Michael or Anna right now? As the city slept, two hearts hurt in parallel, separated not by distance but by fear, pride, and miscommunication. The shatter point had arrived, and the story now hung on a knife's edge. Would they allow this pain to destroy them, or would the connection they shared survive the storm? The following days were a quiet battlefield. Michael moved through his penthouse as if on autopilot, his mind a tempest of doubt and regret. Every success in business felt hollow, every achievement meaningless without Anna by his side. The city glittered below him, but the lights mocked him, reflecting a world where he could solve anything, except the one problem that truly mattered: himself. He replayed the argument in his mind over and over. Her hurt, her trembling voice, the look in her eyes, the shock of realizing he had nearly destroyed something pure and fragile. He hated himself for letting pride, fear, and the whispers of others cloud his judgment. But he also feared reaching out and risking further rejection. What if she had moved on? What if he had already lost her for good? Meanwhile, Anna sat in her small apartment, the silence pressing against her chest. She had allowed herself to cry, long unrestrained sobs that left her exhausted but clearer. She replayed the moments with Michael. The first spark in the boardroom, the storm that forced them together, the night in the gallery, the laughter and quiet moments that had made her feel seen. And yet, the sting of betrayal, the rumors, and his momentary doubt haunted her. Could she trust him again? Could she allow herself to hope after the pain? Both of them were alone, but neither was truly at peace. Michael wrestled with the conflict between pride and vulnerability. He wanted to protect his heart, yet every instinct told him that if he didn't act, he would lose the person who mattered most. Anna wrestled with fear and longing, wondering if taking a step forward meant risking everything she had built, everything she believed about herself. Finally, Michael made a decision. Pride could no longer rule him. Fear could no longer dictate his actions. He picked up his phone, fingers trembling slightly as he typed a message he had never imagined sending. Anna, I've realized something I shouldn't have ignored. I let my fear and pride get in the way. I was wrong to doubt you. Can we meet? I need you to know the truth. Anna stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. Her first instinct was to delete the message, to protect herself from further hurt. But then she remembered the small gestures, the moments of trust, the laughter, the nights that had made her feel alive. She realized that this opportunity to reconcile, to speak openly, to be vulnerable, was rare, perhaps once in a lifetime. She typed back, "Meet me at the cafe we talked about last week. I'll be there." The hours leading up to their meeting were a torturous blend of hope and fear for both of them. Michael arrived early, his usual composure replaced with a nervous energy he hadn't felt in years. Anna entered the cafe shortly after, tentative yet determined, her eyes scanning until they met his. For a moment neither spoke. Words weren't enough to bridge the months of tension, pain, and longing. Finally, Michael stood, taking a deep breath. "Anna, I was wrong. I let everything else, fear, pride, rumors, cloud my judgment. I questioned you when I should have trusted you. I can't undo the past, but I can choose what happens next." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the weight of his emotions. Anna looked at him, eyes glistening. "Michael, I was hurt. I thought maybe you didn't see me the way I saw you. But I also realized that I can't ignore what we had, what we have." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I want to try. I want to trust again if you're willing to earn it." He stepped closer, heart pounding. "I'm willing. I don't care about pride or judgment or anything else. I only care about you. About us. Tears threatened to spill from Anna's eyes, a mixture of relief, fear, and hope. Then let's start over, she whispered. They sat together, talking for hours, this time with honesty as their only guide. They shared their fears, their mistakes, their hopes, and their love. Every word, every glance, every touch was a building block of a renewed connection, stronger for the trials it had endured. The choice had been made, not a choice of convenience, but a deliberate, courageous decision to embrace vulnerability, to trust, to love despite the risk of pain. By the end of the evening, the cafe was nearly empty, the city outside bathed in golden streetlight. They walked together into the night, hands brushing, hearts lighter than they had been in months. The shatter point had passed, and though scars remained, the bond between them had transformed into something resilient, something real. Have you ever had to choose between fear and love? Comment below. What choice would you make if you were Michael or Anna? For the first time in a long while, both felt the quiet thrill of hope, the possibility that love, when chosen deliberately, could heal wounds, overcome misunderstandings, and endure. The choice had been made, and the next chapter of their story, one of connection, trust, and shared life, was only beginning. The morning sun filtered gently through the tall windows of Michael's penthouse, casting long, golden streaks across the polished floor. The city below hummed with life, oblivious to the quiet miracle that had unfolded inside. For the first time in months, Michael felt calm, a deep, steady calm that wasn't born of control, but of trust. Anna stood near the window, sunlight catching her hair. And for a moment, Michael simply watched her. The memories of the boardroom, the storm, the gallery, the storm of misunderstandings, they all seemed distant now, shadows behind the warmth of this new beginning. She turned, smiling softly at him. And he realized how much space she had occupied in his heart without him even knowing it. I still can't believe we made it, Anna said, voice quiet, but full of relief. After everything, all the doubts, the fear, we're here. Michael walked toward her, reaching out to gently take her hands in his. We made it because we chose to. Because we didn't let pride, fear, or the world dictate our story. We chose each other, Anna. That's the difference. She laughed softly, a sound that warmed him from the inside out. I guess some sparks are meant to survive storms. He smiled, remembering the storm that had first forced them together. The rain pounding against the city streets. The lightning that mirrored the electric tension between them. That storm had changed everything. But this morning, the clarity, the peace, the possibility, they were living proof that love, at last, could conquer doubt. Michael pulled her close, letting the embrace linger. In her warmth, he found a sanctuary he hadn't realized he had been searching for all his life. Anna, feeling the steady strength behind his arms, allowed herself to let go of the fear, the hesitation, the lingering pain of past misunderstandings. Over breakfast later, they spoke freely, openly, without judgment or pretension. Michael shared stories of his childhood, not to impress but to connect. Anna shared her hopes for the future, for herself and her brother, trusting him to listen and care. Each story, each word, each glance was a stitch in the fabric of their renewed bond, a testament to vulnerability and courage. As the day unfolded, Michael surprised Anna with a small, simple gesture, a gift, not of wealth but of thoughtfulness. A notebook she had admired months ago, a symbol of her dreams, her intelligence, and his recognition of who she truly was. Anna's eyes welled with tears, touched not by extravagance, but by sincerity. Later, they visited the restaurant where it all had begun. The place where a simple act of insight had upended Michael's world. Staff and customers greeted Anna warmly, but Michael noticed how differently he viewed the space now. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a place of beginnings, of resilience, and of love at last. Sitting together at a quiet corner table, he looked at her, eyes soft and full of unspoken emotion. I want every beginning from here on to be with you, he said. No more doubts, no more walls. Just us. Anna reached across, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. And I want every ending with you too, she whispered, smiling. Because I finally know, we're stronger together than apart. The moment was simple, yet profound. In their hands, hearts, and shared laughter, The story of fear, misunderstanding, and pride had given way to something enduring. They had faced doubts, storms, and betrayal. But in the end, love at last had prevailed. As evening fell and the city lights shimmered below, Michael and Anna walked hand in hand through the streets, not as a billionaire and a waitress, but as two people who had chosen each other against all odds. Every glance, every smile, every gentle touch echoed the journey they had endured. The spark in the boardroom, the storm that forced them together, the backstories that revealed wounds, the bond that survived betrayal, and finally, the choice that led them to this moment of redemption and connection. Do you believe love can survive doubt and fear? Comment below what you would do if you were in Michael or Anna's place, and share your story of unexpected love. In the quiet triumph of that night, one truth became clear. Some connections are meant to last, some sparks are meant to endure, and sometimes love, unexpected, unplanned, unstoppable, arrives exactly when it's needed most. Michael and Anna had found each other. Against odds, against fear, against doubt. Love at last had arrived. And it was real, it was enduring, and it was theirs. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way to the end. Your time, your support, and your presence here mean more than words can say. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or kept you watching, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in love. See you in the next story.